Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching. Whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to know. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. Nerys Halwyn hit the marble floor with such force, she tasted copper. The guards didn't slow. They shoved her forward like she was a criminal, not a terrified Omega who had been running for her life. Her palms scraped across the cold stone as gasps rose from the nobles lining the throne room. Their jeweled collars glittered in the torchlight, but their eyes shined with something uglier. Curiosity, disgust, hunger for scandal. Nerys forced herself to stay small, her breath trembling, her dark hair spilling like a curtain around her face. She could hear her captors reporting something to the king, but her pulse pounded so fiercely she caught only fragments. Found in the West Wing, trespassing, claiming to be chaste, Omega blood, my king. That last part stung the hardest. Like her entire existence was a stain she had brought into the palace. She lifted her head just enough to see the throne at the far end of the Crimson Isle. And him, Daraith Varen, the Alpha King, stood beside his throne like he had been carved from the dark wood itself. Broad shoulders, cold jawline, a power in his stillness that made the air itself tighten around him. His eyes, storm-dark and terrifyingly focused, were locked on her. Not on the guards, not on the nobles. On her. Nerys felt her blood turn to ice. The king stepped down each marble stair slowly, with the unhurried confidence of someone who feared nothing. Not death, not prophecy, not the monstrous responsibilities that came with ruling the most feared kingdom in the north. He stopped only a breath away from her, close enough that she could feel the heat coming from his body. For an Omega whose instincts screamed submit, the nearness of an Alpha should have crushed her. But instead, something inside her rose, an instinct she didn't recognize. Survival, defiance, maybe even destiny. Daraith spoke quietly, but his voice cut through the room like a blade. Look at me.
She didn't want to.
She didn't want him to see the fear in her eyes. But she obeyed, lifting her chin. His expression didn't flicker. You were found in my private wing, he said. Explain yourself. Nerys swallowed. Her voice felt borrowed, barely hers. I wasn't hiding, she whispered. I was running. A murmur rippled through the nobles, mocking, suspicious, delighted by the drama. Daraith's brow tightened a fraction. Running from what? He asked. Nerys' heart hammered. She could still feel them behind her. Roven Duskstride's rogues, the snapping jaws in the dark forest, the way they howled her name like it was a curse. From those who want me dead. The throne room fell silent. Her words didn't crack, though her hands did shake. Daraith studied her face with unnerving calm. He looked like a man who measured truth by the way a person breathed. Then he spoke a single word. Everyone.
Out.
His command rolled through the chamber in a wave of alpha power. Nobles staggered. Guards stiffened. Even the flames in the torches seemed to bow. Within moments, the massive doors groaned shut, leaving the two of them alone in the vast chamber, shadows stretching long around them. Nerys' breath fogged slightly in the cold air. Daraith did not take his eyes off her. Stand, he ordered. She tried, legs trembling beneath her, but she managed to rise. When she swayed, Daraith reached out instinctively, steadying her by the arm. The contact jolted her, a spark like heat and cold at once. He felt it too. She saw it in the way his eyes sharpened. He released her quickly, almost abruptly, as if the touch had startled him. Your presence in my private wing is no accident, he said. And neither is, his jaw tightened. Whatever that was. Nerys' breath caught. She had felt something the moment his hand touched her, something ancient, something forbidden. But she didn't understand it.
Didn't want to.
She couldn't afford another danger. Not when rogues were hunting her and her sister was still out there alone. It was nothing, she whispered. Daraith exhaled slowly. You lie poorly. He circled her once, not like a predator circling prey, but like a king assessing a puzzle he didn't yet understand. Tell me your name. Nerys hesitated. Names held power, her mother used to say. But she had no choice. Nerys Halwyn. Daraith froze. His expression changed, sharply, subtly, but enough that she felt a shock ripple through her. Halwyn. His voice dropped lower. I have heard that name. Nerys' stomach clenched. No, she whispered. You haven't. But he had. She could see it in his eyes. Daraith stepped closer, lowering his voice. Before my father died, the High Seer spoke of a girl with Halwyn blood. A girl who would bring either salvation or destruction. Nerys felt the room tilt. Suddenly she was cold, so cold she could barely breathe. That's superstition, she said. But Daraith shook his head once. Avaris Quill does not deal in superstition. Silence hung heavy between them. For a moment, Nerys felt the weight of the entire kingdom pressing down on her shoulders. Then Daraith spoke again, quietly, dangerously. If the nobles learn who you are, they will demand your execution before sunrise. Nerys flinched. She had expected danger. But not this. Not from the king himself. So, why haven't you killed me already? She whispered. Daraith's eyes softened, not with kindness, but with the burden of a man trapped between duty and something he didn't yet understand. Because there is one way to protect you without betraying my kingdom. The air grew thick. Nerys' pulse roared. She sensed the danger in his next breath. Stay with me tonight, he said. In my chambers. Her heart slammed painfully. Daraith continued, voice steady. If you remain in my bed until dawn, it will be seen as an alpha claiming a mate. The court will not question your presence. They will not dare harm you. Her chest tightened. And if I refuse? His answer came with no hesitation. Then you will not live to see the morning. Nerys' world blurred. She tasted fear. And heartbreak. And something else. Something she wished she didn't feel when she met the king's gaze. Something like fate tugging at her ribs. Daraith stepped closer, his voice low. I won't touch you without consent. I won't harm you. But if you stay beside me, you will live. Nerys' breath shook. Her instincts pulled in two directions, run or step forward. The moonlight spilled across the floor like a silver path between them. And then she realized something terrifying. For the first time since her mother died, she didn't feel alone. She took a slow breath. Daraith waited, silent, still, watching her with eyes that hid storms. Nerys lifted her chin. I will stay, she whispered, just for the night. Daraith nodded once. But the flicker in his eyes told her he already knew this night would change everything. The palace halls stretched out before Nerys like the ribs of a sleeping beast, vast, cold, and quietly dangerous. Daraith walked half a step ahead of her, his long stride steady, his cloak brushing the marble with every purposeful movement. Nothing about him hesitated. Nothing about him faltered. And that terrified her more than the rogues who had chased her through the forest. Because she sensed something in him. Something he was trying very hard not to reveal. A flicker of tension in his shoulders. The way his hand stayed near the dagger at his hip, not for her sake, but for his own. As if he expected someone to strike, at any moment. Nerys kept her steps small, her breath thin. The palace was too quiet. Every torch crackled too loudly. Every shadow seemed to twitch. Every whisper of cold wind along the corridor felt like a warning sent from something unseen. Stay close, Daraith said without looking back. Nerys hated that her body obeyed before her mind did, her feet carrying her nearer to him. His presence wasn't comforting, it was overwhelming. Heavy like a winter storm pressing against thin windows. Where are your guards? She asked softly. Why is no one? Because I dismissed them, he said, voice low. Tonight, eyes are more dangerous than blades. His chamber doors rose ahead, dark oak carved with wolves intertwined, jaws open as if in silent cry. Torches flanked either side, casting molten gold across the iron handles. Daraith paused, hesitating for the first time since they left the throne room. Only a moment, but Nerys saw it. A breath caught in his chest. A thought he didn't speak. Then he pushed open the doors. Warmth seeped out immediately, heat from a fire roaring inside, washing over Nari's chilled skin. The room was enormous, but not luxurious the way she expected. It was built for a warrior, not a king. Weapons on the walls. Maps strewn across a broad wooden table. A single massive bed against the far window, carved from dark ironwood, draped in furs rather than silk. Nerys stepped in slowly. The door closed behind her with a soft thud that felt like the sealing of fate. "You may sit," Daraith said. She didn't move. He turned toward her, his eyes unreadable. "Nerys."
Sit.
She obeyed, lowering herself onto a simple bench near the fire. Her hands twisted in her lap, nervous energy curling through her muscles. Daraith crossed the room, shedding his cloak and placing it on a nearby chair. The firelight carved shadows across his face, sharp and intense. Then his voice softened. "Tell me who hunts you." Nerys' breath caught. She hadn't expected the question to come so quickly. Daraith stood tall, arms crossed, waiting with the patience of someone who would not accept silence for long. Nerys stared into the flames. "Rovan Duskstride," she whispered. "He leads a rogue faction. They ambushed my village at night. They weren't after territory. They were after me." Daraith's eyes narrowed. "Why?" Nerys swallowed hard. Her throat ached with the memory. "Because of something my mother told me before she died. Something I didn't understand until I saw a mark appear on my wrist this year." She hesitated, then pushed back her sleeve, revealing a faint silver line curled like a crescent moon against her skin. It pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. Daraith moved closer, his voice dropping lower. "A prophecy mark." Nerys nodded. "My mother hid me for years. She said this mark meant I could either save our kind or end us." Daraith stared at the mark, tension rippling through him. "Prophecies are not truths," he said. "They are warnings. Possibilities." "Rovan thinks it means I'm a threat," Nerys whispered. "He thinks killing me will change fate." Daraith's jaw clenched. "And what do you think?" Nerys met his eyes. "I think I'm terrified." He studied her a long, heavy gaze. Not pitying, not judging. Measuring. Then he nodded once. "There is something you must understand," he said. "My father was killed the night he received the same prophecy you were born with. The High Seer told him a Halwyn girl would decide the future of the wolves. He didn't live long enough to learn how." Nerys' breath hitched. "You think that girl is me?" Daraith didn't deny it. He paced slowly, his hands behind his back, the weight of a kingdom on his shoulders. "If you die tonight, the court will claim it as justice. If you survive the night beside me, the court will claim it as fate." Nerys stared at the massive bed. "And if I leave at dawn?" Daraith's voice was steady, but something in it sounded almost reluctant. "Then you will be free. No chains. No commands. No bond." Nerys swallowed. "You think there's a bond?" His eyes flickered just once. "I felt something in the throne room," he admitted. "But I won't force a destiny on you that you don't want." Nerys' heart twisted painfully. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever given her a choice. "You don't frighten me," she said quietly. It wasn't entirely true. But Daraith Varen frightened her less than what waited outside the palace walls. He exhaled, slow and controlled, then moved toward the bed. He didn't sit on it. Instead, he gestured to the far side. "You will sleep there. I will take the chair." Nerys blinked. She hadn't expected that. "But the court does not need to know the details," Daraith said, not unkindly. "Only that you remained in my chamber until dawn." Nerys stood slowly, her legs trembling more from uncertainty than fear. She approached the bed, fingers brushing the fur-lined blankets. They were soft, unexpectedly soft. She didn't lie down yet. Daraith watched her carefully. "You don't trust me," he said. "Good. You shouldn't." Nerys met his gaze. "And you don't trust me." The faintest ghost of a smirk touched his lips, just for a heartbeat. "Good," he echoed. A sudden knock at the chamber door shattered the fragile calm. Daraith stiffened instantly, stepping in front of her. His voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "Stay behind me." The knock came again, harder. Your Majesty, called a man's voice. Thinner slate, the beta. Daraith opened the door only a fraction. This better be important. Finner lowered his voice to a whisper Nerys barely heard. Rovin's rogues were spotted at the eastern border. Daraith's entire body went still.
Cold.
Focused. How many? Too many. The beta hesitated. And we think someone inside the palace helped them find a way through the wards. Betrayal. In the palace. Nerys' stomach twisted. The door shut again, leaving Daraith in tense silence. He turned toward her slowly. It seems, he said, voice low and dangerous, that the night is far from over. Nerys stepped closer before she even realized she was moving. What do you need me to do? Daraith looked at her, long, searching, something fierce in his expression. Stay alive, he said. No matter what happens. And though she didn't understand why, Nerys believed him. Because there was fear in his voice. Not fear of Rovin. Not fear of prophecy. Fear of losing her. The fire snapped sharply as Daraith crossed the chamber in taut, controlled strides. Every muscle in his body coiled like he was preparing for war. Nerys watched him from near the bed, her heart pounding against her ribs. The shadows cast by the flames stretched long across the stone walls, shadows that moved when he moved, shadows that seemed to lean toward him like even darkness answered to the king. He raked a hand through his hair, exhaling through clenched teeth. If Rovin's rogues breached the border, then someone inside these walls has betrayed us. Nerys swallowed hard. You think they were after me again? I know they were, Daraith said. He stopped, turning toward her slowly. The heat of the fire haloed around him, outlining the sharp lines of his face. No rogue pack would risk the eastern watershed unless the prize was worth dying for. Nerys' breath shook. She wrapped her arms around herself, fighting the chill prickling her skin. So staying here in your room is the safest place? Daraith's expression was grim. It's the only place. A sudden gust of air slipped through a crack in the stone walls. The torches flickered violently. Nerys flinched at the sudden darkening, only to feel Daraith's presence behind her. Not touching her, just close. Close enough that the warmth from his body pressed against her back like a shield. You're afraid, he murmured. She nodded. I'm trying not to be. He moved around her, coming to stand in front of her again. Good, he said softly. Fear keeps you alive. Panic kills. Nerys forced herself to breathe. She studied his face, strong, unreadable, crafted by duty and war. But beneath the steel, she sensed a fracture. Something he was trying desperately to hide. Why do they want the Halwyn girl? She asked. What does the prophecy actually say? Daraith looked away. For the first time, he hesitated. It's not a prophecy, he said finally. It's a warning. The High Seer told my father that a Halwyn would carry a power great enough to challenge kings. Nerys blinked. What kind of power? The ancient kind, he murmured. The kind wolves forgot existed. The kind the rogues want to steal or destroy before it awakens. Nerys' pulse quickened. The silver mark on her wrist seemed to throb in response. Daraith stepped closer, lowering his voice. Do you feel anything when the mark pulses? She hesitated. Sometimes, she admitted. Before the attack. Before the wolves came for me. I felt pressure. Like the air thickens. Like something inside me wants to open, but I don't know how. Daraith's gaze sharpened. Power awakening is unpredictable.
It can heal or destroy.
Protect or kill. Nerys whipped her gaze up.
Kill.
He nodded once. If uncontrolled. Her stomach twisted. So, the prophecy girl could be a threat even if she doesn't want to be? Daraith held her gaze. Yes. Nerys stepped back. It was too much. The mark, the prophecy, the rogues, the king's intense stare that felt like it could see into her bones. She pressed a hand to her forehead. I never asked for this. No prophesied child ever does, Daraith murmured. The silence that followed was heavy, but not empty. It felt like a string stretched tight between them. One pull, and it might snap. A loud crash suddenly echoed from the hall outside. Nerys gasped, her head snapping toward the door. Dorath's hand moved to his dagger immediately. "Stay behind me." She obeyed at once, stepping back into the shadows of the bed's tall frame. Dorath moved like a wolf prepared to lunge, every sense sharpened. The chamber door rattled once, twice, then slowly eased open. Finner slipped inside, eyes wild. "The rogues are closer than we thought," he said urgently. "They're inside the northern wing. We found 2 guards unconscious near the courtyard." Dorath's jaw tightened. "Casualties?" Finner shook his head. "Not dead.
Drugged."
Something in their blood burned black. Dorath cursed under his breath. "Roven is using venom." Nerys froze. "What does that mean?" Finner answered grimly. "It means they don't plan to take prisoners." A tremor ran through her. Dorath noticed. "Finner," he said tightly, "double the guards around this chamber. No one enters. No one leaves." Finner nodded. "Yes, my king." He vanished down the corridor, closing the door behind him. Dorath sheathed his dagger, but didn't relax. He scanned the room with sharp, assessing eyes. "The rogues are inside the palace," he said softly. Nerys' voice came out thin. "And they're looking for me." "Yes." She hugged herself, breathing unevenly. Dorath stepped toward her, lowering his voice. "Nerys." She didn't look up. "They'll find me," she whispered. "They always find me." He reached out, slowly, carefully, and rested a hand on her forearm. She startled but didn't pull away.
His voice softened.
"Not tonight." She met his gaze. There was no arrogance in his tone. No promise he couldn't keep. Just certainty. Quiet, unshakable certainty. It scared her more than any threat Roven posed. "Why are you helping me?" she whispered. Dorath's fingers tightened slightly. "Because I am king," he said. "Because I protect my kingdom." He hesitated, just a flicker. "And because when I touched your arm in the throne room, something in me recognized you." Nerys' breath caught. The bond. Dorath didn't deny it. His eyes softened, shadows of conflict swirling inside them. "I don't know what it is yet," he admitted. "But I know this. Tonight, you are under my protection." She felt the weight of his words settle over her like a cloak. A heavy, warm, frightening cloak. The tension in the room shifted, thickened, deepened. The fire crackled, casting gold across Dorath's face, illuminating the vulnerability he tried to hide. Nerys whispered, "You still expect me to sleep in your bed?" Dorath stepped back slowly, giving her space. "You will sleep there," he said, "and I will remain awake." Her brows lifted. "All night." "Yes." There was no hesitation, no exhaustion, just resolve. "To guard you." Something inside her chest twisted painfully. No one had ever guarded her before. Not like this. Not with such burning intensity. "Dorath," she whispered. But before she could say anything more, the torches along the wall flickered violently, then extinguished all at once. The chamber plunged into near darkness. Nerys' breath hitched. Dorath moved instantly, stepping in front of her, shielding her with his body. His voice dropped to a quiet, deadly rumble. "They're here." And for the first time, Nerys sensed it too, not with her ears or eyes, but with the strange pressure in her wrist. The silver mark burned hot beneath her skin. A cold voice whispered through the darkness beyond the door. Halwyn, Roven's voice. Inside the palace. Inside the king's wing. Nerys grabbed the back of Dorath's cloak. He didn't look at her, but she heard the promise in his voice. "I will not let them take you." The door handle twisted. Nerys' heartbeat roared. Dorath drew his blade. And the chamber filled with the sound of wolves approaching. The chamber door shuddered under a heavy blow, dust falling from the hinges as Nerys stumbled back. Dorath didn't move from in front of her. He stood tall, shoulders squared, blade angled downward with lethal calm. The firelight flickered violently, as if sensing the wolves gathering outside. "Stay behind me," he murmured, voice sharp but steady. Nerys nodded, her fingers trembling against the carved bedpost. The silver mark on her wrist pulsed, faint at first, then stronger, hotter, as though responding to the danger crawling ever closer. Her breath shook. Her instincts screamed to run, to hide, to vanish. But she stayed. Stayed because Deraith did not falter. Not even when the door creaked and a low, guttural growl echoed from the other side. "Rovan," Deraith muttered, jaw tight. He never was subtle. Another blow struck the door, splintering wood. Nerys gasped, covering her mouth. Deraith took a single step forward, placing himself fully between her and the door. The fire reflected off the steel of his blade, shaping him into a silhouette of defiance. "You chose the wrong night to hunt in my kingdom," he growled quietly. Outside, Rovan's voice rose, smooth, taunting, dripping with venom. "We only want the girl. Stand aside, Alpha, and we'll let you live." Deraith barked a cold laugh. "You think you can enter my palace, threaten my people, and walk out alive?" The door trembled again, wood cracking down the center. "I didn't come for your kingdom," Rovan said. "Only for the prophecy." Nerys' body froze. The prophecy. Again, the mark burned. Harder now, like a warning. Or a summons. Deraith turned his head slightly toward her. "Nerys," he said low. "Look at me." She forced her eyes off the breaking door and onto him. "If they breach this room, I need you to listen carefully. Stay behind me. Do not run. Understand? But no matter what you feel," he continued, voice firm, "no matter what awakens in you, do not use whatever power tries to surface tonight. It is too unstable." Her heart hammered painfully. "I don't even know how to use it." "Exactly," Deraith said. "Which is why you must not let it take hold." The door gave another deafening crack. Her pulse roared in her ears. Power, her power, pressed at her ribs like something alive, something trapped. Deraith turned fully toward the door, every muscle tense. He looked like a king ready to face death. Nerys realized with a jolt of terror that he was prepared to die for her. The door finally tore open, wooden fragments scattering across the floor as 3 wolves lunged through. Rogue wolves, massive, fur-bristling, eyes glowing with a feral red sheen. Deraith moved in a flash. His blade sliced clean across the first wolf's shoulder, spinning it across the room before it could reach Nerys. The second wolf leaped, jaws wide. Deraith slammed his boot into its ribs, sending it crashing into a stone pillar. The third skidded in the firelight, low and ready to strike. Nerys backed until her spine hit the wall. Her breath caught. Deraith didn't give the wolf a chance. He swung hard, the strike decisive, brutal. The wolf collapsed. But as its body hit the floor, a slow, mocking clap sounded from the doorway. Nerys' blood ran cold. Rovan. He stepped inside, tall, broad, scar down his jaw, eyes burning with a sick hunger. "Impressive," he said, looking around the ruined chamber. "Your king fights well, Halwyn." Deraith tightened his grip on the blade. "Take one more step, Rovan," he warned, "and I will end you." Rovan smirked. "You won't kill me. Not tonight." His gaze slid to Nerys. "She's awakening, Deraith. You can smell it, can't you?" Nerys gasped softly, shrinking back. The heat under her skin climbed, rising, threatening to burst. Deraith's jaw clenched. "Her fate is not yours to decide." "And it's not yours either," Rovan said. "She belongs to the prophecy." "She belongs to herself," Deraith snapped, stepping protectively in front of her. Rovan sighed dramatically. "Then I'll take her by force." He lunged. Deraith met him halfway, steel clashing with claws. The sound tore through the chamber, metal shrieking, growls ripping through the air. They moved with deadly precision. Deraith struck high. Rovan swiped low. Deraith drove him back with a violent shove. Rovan countered with a blow that sent Deraith staggering a step. Nerys' heart nearly stopped. "Deraith!" she cried. He didn't look back. With a roar, he swung his blade upward, catching Rovan's jaw, sending him crashing against the wall. But Rovan rose again, grinning, blood dripping down his chin. "You can't kill me, Varen," he taunted. "Not without the Halwyn girl choosing her destiny." Nerys stiffened. "Choosing?" "Yes," Rovan said. "Her awakening decides who rules the North." His eyes gleamed. "And she deserves to know the truth."
Tell her, Daraith.
"Tell her what your father feared most." Daraith's expression changed, sharpened, darkened. "Rovan," he warned. "Enough." "Oh, you don't want her to know?" Rovan tilted his head mockingly. "That the prophecy child is destined to either raise an Alpha King or destroy him?" Nerys' breath vanished. She stared at Daraith, horror swelling. "Is that true?" Daraith didn't answer, and the silence answered for him. Nerys stumbled back as if struck. Her mark pulsed violently, heat blooming like fire under her skin. Rovan laughed.
"See?
She feels it. She feels the truth." Daraith's voice finally cut through the tension, rough, desperate. "Nerys, focus on me." She couldn't. The power inside her rippled outward, the room warping at the edges of her vision. The fire flared. Sparks shot upward as though drawn to her. Daraith reached for her. "Nerys, listen. Let her choose," Rovan hissed. The energy snapped inside Nerys, bursting through her in a wave that made the torches roar awake, flames climbing the walls like living creatures. Daraith shielded his eyes, stunned. Rovan laughed in triumph. But Nerys fell to her knees, shaking, gasping, power crackling along her skin like silver lightning. "Make it stop," she whispered. "Please make it stop." Daraith dropped to her side, cupping her face gently. "Look at me."
Look only at me.
Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. It's not your fault," Daraith murmured fiercely. "Your power is responding to fear. Breathe with me." Behind them, Rovan growled. "Foolish king. You can't stop destiny." Daraith didn't look away from Nerys. "I'm not trying to stop it," he said quietly. "I'm trying to save her." The mark burned hotter, brighter, until a soft glow lit the chamber. Nerys choked on a sob. "Daraith, I can't hold it. You won't have to." His forehead pressed to hers, grounding her. "Let the power pass through. Don't fight it." She tried. But the pressure inside her swelled, rising, until it felt like the chamber itself was shaking. Rovan stepped forward, eyes wide in sudden fear. "She's awakening." A burst of raw, silver force exploded from Nerys, blinding, wild, unstoppable. And everything went white. Light swallowed everything. Not warm light, not gentle. It was a violent explosion of silver, raw, ancient, pulsing like a furious heartbeat. Nerys felt herself lifted off the floor, suspended in a brightness that felt like both drowning and burning. She couldn't see Daraith. She couldn't see the chamber. She couldn't even see her own hands. Just light. Just pressure. Just the roar of something inside her finally waking after years of being locked in silence. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound escaped. The light wrapped around her lungs, squeezing, pulling. Images flashed behind her eyes, her mother's face, whispering warnings. Mirine's tiny hand clutching hers as they hid in the woods. Fire, wolves, the silver mark that appeared the night everything changed. The prophecy, the danger, the fate she had never asked for. Then, as suddenly as it began, the light snapped inward. Nerys hit the cold stone with a jarring thud. The breath knocked from her chest. The glow around her flickered, then died. Darkness rushed back into the chamber. She gasped violently, clutching the ground, fighting for air. Her skin felt too tight, her bones too hot. But she was alive. Barely. A sharp groan echoed across the room. Nerys lifted her head, vision swimming. Daraith lay sprawled several feet away, smoke curling from the floor beneath him where the light had struck hardest. He pushed himself up with a grimace, chest heaving, hair disheveled, eyes blazing with a mixture of pain and awe. "Nerys," he breathed. She flinched. The sound of her name felt like a tether pulling her back from drowning. Daraith staggered to his feet, blade forgotten, focus entirely on her. I told you not to use it, he said, voice rough. You could have died. She swallowed, throat raw. I didn't mean to. I couldn't stop it. He reached her side in 2 strides, crouching. His hand hovered above her cheek, hesitant, trembling. Are you hurt? She shook her head. Just shaken. Wraith exhaled shakily, relief flickering across his usually guarded face. Good. He closed his eyes briefly, grounding himself. But before he could say more, a coughing laugh sounded from the far wall. Well, Rovan rasped, that was spectacular. Nerys jerked her head toward the voice. Rovan was slumped against the collapsed pillar, blood dripping from his jaw, his clothes scorched, but his eyes, those cruel, burning eyes, were gleaming with sick satisfaction. The prophecy was right, he croaked, pushing himself upright. She awakens under fear, under chaos, under threat. Wraith rose swiftly, stepping in front of Nerys, blade back in his hand. Take 1 step, Rovan, and I'll finish what she started. Rovan wiped blood from his lips, smirking. You can't protect her forever. The moment her power grows beyond your control, your council will demand her head. Wraith's grip tightened. You talk too much. No, Rovan said, voice gaining strength. I speak truth. She will destroy kings, Wraith. Maybe even you. Nerys felt something inside her twist painfully. Wraith moved closer to Rovan, voice deadly calm. Leave. Now. Rovan tilted his head mockingly. Or what? Wraith didn't answer with words. He swung. The blade struck the wall inches from Rovan's neck, lodging deep into the stone. The entire palace trembled. Rovan stiffened, eyes widening. Wraith leaned close, voice a low snarl. Next time I don't miss. Rovan glared at him, then turned his gaze to Nerys. This isn't over. His form shimmered, then burst into smoke, vanishing through the cracks in the stone like a dark wind fleeing the light. Silence followed. Heavy. Haunted. Nerys' heart pounded in her ears. Wraith didn't sheath his blade. Not until several long seconds passed, and he was sure the threat had truly gone. Only then did he turn back to her, something fierce and protective burning in his eyes. Don't move, he murmured, crouching again. Let me see your wrist. Nerys extended it shakily. The silver mark glowed faintly, still warm to the touch. Wraith's jaw tightened. It reacted without your control. That's dangerous. She bit her lip. I know. Then we train you, he said. She blinked. Train me? Yes. His tone was iron, unwavering. If the power is awakening, you can't be unprepared. I won't let this prophecy dictate your fate. Nerys stared at him, breath catching. Something in her chest pulled tight. Why? She whispered. Why do you care so much? Wraith opened his mouth, closed it again. His eyes flicked away, like he was battling something inside himself. You ask questions I'm not ready to answer, he said finally. Nerys' heartbeat fluttered unsteadily. She looked down at her hands, still trembling, still marked by faint silver veins. What if Rovan's right? She whispered. What if I destroy everything? Wraith's gaze snapped to hers. Listen to me. His voice dropped, firm but gentle. Power doesn't decide your fate. You do. Nerys blinked rapidly, tears stinging her eyes. No one had ever said that to her. Not once. Wraith helped her sit up properly, his movements careful, almost reverent. I won't let you fall, he said. Not to prophecy. Not to Rovan. Not to your own fear. Her breath hitched. Why do you sound like you're making a vow? Wraith didn't answer at first. Then, slowly, he reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The touch was featherlight, dangerous in its tenderness. Because I am, he murmured. Nerys' heart thudded. Wraith. A sharp knock slammed into the chamber door. Wraith froze. Nerys stiffened. Who is it? Wraith called. It's Finner, the beta's voice shouted urgently. Your Majesty, there's been another breach. The council demands your presence. They heard the explosion. Daraith cursed softly under his breath. He looked at Nerys. Can you stand? She nodded, though her legs trembled. He helped her rise, his hand steady on her elbow. When she swayed, he caught her waist instinctively, his touch warm, grounding. Their faces hovered close, too close. Nerys' breath tangled in her throat. Daraith cleared his. You'll stay here, he said softly. No one enters without my command. Her fingers curled around his sleeve without her realizing. Be careful. Daraith stilled. Slowly, he covered her hand with his. I will return, he said. His voice was quiet, but there was a promise inside it. Something ancient. Something binding. He released her gently and strode to the door. But just before opening it, he looked back at her, once long, searching. Nerys felt something electric ripple through her. Then he was gone. And for the first time, she realized the prophecy wasn't the only danger waking inside her. Something else was stirring. Something far more dangerous. The beginning of a bond. The moment Daraith left, the chamber felt too big. Too quiet. Too full of shadows that whispered of wolves and prophecies and choices she didn't understand. Nerys crossed her arms tightly over her chest, rubbing warmth into her trembling skin. The fire crackled, but it didn't feel comforting anymore. It felt like a warning, like the last flicker of light before darkness swallowed everything. She paced slowly, forcing her breath to steady. Daraith had said he would return. Daraith had said she was safe here. But safety was a word she stopped believing in the night her mother died. She brushed her fingers across the silver mark on her wrist. It no longer throbbed with violent power, but it hummed faintly, an echo of what had happened, of what she couldn't control. Destroy kings, she whispered bitterly. Or save them. She closed her eyes. Images flashed behind her lids. Daraith shielding her. Daraith leaning close. Daraith's touch grounding her through the storm in her veins. She hated how much she remembered his warmth. She hated more how much she needed it. A soft creak sounded near the window. Nerys spun around, heart slamming into her ribs. Daraith? No answer. Just silence. And shadows. She stepped closer. Slowly. Every instinct screamed to stay by the fire, but curiosity tugged at her, fear guiding her steps like a trembling hand. The glass window pane rattled once. Twice. Nerys' pulse spiked. Someone was outside. She backed away, searching the room for any weapon, anything. Her hands landed on a silver candlestick. Heavy. Cool. Solid. She gripped it. The window rattled again, louder, sharper. Then a voice whispered through the glass, barely audible, trembling with urgency. Nerys. Her blood froze. She knew that voice. She rushed forward despite herself, palms flattening against the cold glass. Daylight from the moon framed a face outside, a young woman with tangled hair and desperate eyes. Miriam? Nerys breathed. Her sister. Alive. Here. Miriam pressed her hands to the opposite side of the window. I've been searching everywhere, she whispered. The rogues, they're coming, Rhys. They're coming for you. Tears pricked Nerys' eyes. How did you? There's no time, Miriam said. You must come with me. Now. The door behind Nerys rattled suddenly. Hard. Nerys jumped, gaze whipping toward it. Miriam's eyes widened. Rhys, hurry, before the king returns. Nerys' heart twisted painfully. The king. Daraith had said no one was to enter. No one. He had left to protect her. But her sister, her Miriam, was here. Real. Trembling. Nerys' hand trembled against the glass. The king is keeping me safe, she whispered. Miriam's expression hardened. No, Nerys. He's keeping you trapped. Nerys flinched. That's not true, isn't it? Miriam's voice shook with something like anger. He needs the prophecy, girl. He needs your power sealed to him. That's why he wants you here. Not because he cares. Nerys' throat tightened. You don't understand. Rhys, Miriam said, voice cracking. I am your sister. I have protected you since we were children. Trust me. Please. Nerys' pulse pounded violently. She wanted to run into her sister's arms. She wanted to trust her. But something felt wrong. Miriam's eyes kept darting over Nari's shoulder, like she feared something inside the chamber. Or someone. Why are you looking behind me? Nariz asked softly. Miriam's breath stilled. No reason.
Lie.
Nariz stepped back slowly. Miriam, how did you get through the wards? Miriam blinked. What? The palace wards, Nariz repeated. Daraith said they're sealed. Only someone with royal permission can enter the king's chambers. Miriam's mouth opened.
Closed.
I found another way.
Lie.
Nariz's stomach dropped. She backed away another step. Miriam slammed her palm against the window. Nariz, listen please. There's no time. Her voice cracked, not with desperation, but with fury. Nariz's hand tightened around the candlestick. What are you? She whispered. Miriam stilled. The moonlight shifted, and her eyes flashed red. Not her sister's eyes. Rovin's eyes. Nariz choked on a gasp as Miriam's form rippled, shimmered, then twisted into someone else entirely. A woman. Taller. Wearing rogue leathers. A sharp smile curling across her lips. So close. Selka Meyerthorn purred. You almost opened the window. Nariz stumbled back, breath breaking. What did you do to my sister? Selka smirked.
She's alive. For now. But you?
You should have listened to your instincts. The chamber door burst open. Nariz screamed, but the voice that responded was one she knew. Nariz. Daraith stood in the doorway, chest heaving, eyes blazing with fury. He saw Selka's form pressed against the window and lunged, but Selka melted into smoke, vanishing as swiftly as Rovin had. Nariz crashed to her knees, the candlestick clattering beside her. Daraith reached her instantly, dropping to his knees and grabbing her shoulders. Are you hurt? No, she whispered, shaking. But she looked like my sister. Daraith's expression darkened with a rage she had never seen in him. Rovin is using illusion casters, he growled. They're trying to lure you out. Nariz's voice cracked. She said Miriam was alive. Daraith's grip softened. She was lying. You don't know that. Nariz, he said firmly. Rovin will use anything to break you. He wants your power unleashed. Nariz shook her head, tears streaming. I don't know what to believe anymore. Daraith cupped her face gently, forcing her eyes to meet his. Believe me, he said quietly, because I will never lie to you. Her breath hitched. The raw sincerity in his voice tugged something deep inside her. Something she didn't want to trust, but couldn't deny. Daraith brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. I told you you're safe here, he said. And I meant it. Nariz swallowed. She said you wanted to bind my power to you. Daraith stiffened, but not with guilt. With hurt. Real hurt. I want you alive, he whispered. Nothing more. Nariz felt her heartbeat stutter. The door behind them creaked again, Finner's voice calling urgently. Your Majesty, another attack in the lower halls. Daraith closed his eyes briefly, a storm of conflict passing over him. Then he helped Nariz stand. I have to go, he said. But I swear on the throne I will return. Nariz reached out, hesitated, then clutched his hand. Daraith, what if they reach me again? His thumb brushed her knuckles, steady, grounding. They won't, he said. Because even if I'm gone, the bond is not. Nariz froze. The bond. Daraith's gaze locked with hers, unguarded, unmasked. You feel it. I feel it. Pretending won't change it. Nariz's breath caught in her chest. Before she could speak, Finner called again. Daraith squeezed her hand once, soft, fierce, and let go. As he left, Nariz's mark pulsed again. Soft. Steady. Like an answer to a truth she could no longer deny. The palace trembled with distant impacts, shouts, clashing steel, the thud of bodies against stone. Nariz stood in the center of Daraith's chamber, staring at the closed door he'd disappeared through. The warmth of his hand lingered on her skin like a memory she didn't know how to hold. The bond. The word pulsed inside her, echoing through her ribs in time with a faint glow of her mark. She didn't understand it fully, but the moment he said it, something in her heart had clicked, like a lock turning, like recognition waking. She pressed a trembling hand to her chest. "Not now," she whispered. "Please," but the bond didn't fade. It deepened, strengthened, a thread stretching from her chest outward, toward Daraith, toward the chaos raging beyond the walls. The fire crackled sharply, startling her. Shadows danced across the stone floor, twisting into strange shapes that made her heart race. She crossed to the window, half expecting Selka to reappear, half dreading what she might see outside. Instead, she saw smoke rising from the courtyard below. Wolves sprinted across the stones, clashing with palace guards. Steel flashed. Blood marked the ground. Nerys pressed her forehead to the glass. "Daraith," her voice trembled, softer than breath. A sudden ache bloomed in her ribs, sharp, deep, like something inside her pulling taut. She gasped, gripping the windowsill. The pain wasn't hers. It was distant yet familiar. "Daraith?" she whispered again, panic rising. The bond pulsed hard. Once, twice, like a heart skipping beats. Another flash of pain shot through her. Nerys staggered backward, hand clutching her side. She knew what it meant. Daraith was hurt. Somewhere in the palace, he was fighting and bleeding. "No," she whispered. "No, no." Her breath grew shallow. She pressed both hands to her chest, trying to steady the frantic beat. "You're not dying," she whispered fiercely into the empty chamber. "You can't be." But the pain kept tightening. A low groan reached her ears. Faint, muffled. Nerys froze. That wasn't a bond. That was real. Inside the chamber.
She spun around.
The sound came from behind the heavy wardrobe door near the wall. Nerys approached slowly, heartbeat hammering, every instinct telling her to run. But she reached for the door anyway. The wood creaked open, revealing a shadow slumped on the floor. Nerys gasped. It wasn't a rogue. It wasn't a guard. It was Evaris Quill, the High Seer she had only heard whispered about. His robes were torn, soaked in something dark. His breathing was shallow, his old eyes clouded with pain. "You," Nerys whispered. Evaris lifted his head weakly. "Child," his voice cracked. "The prophecy, you've awakened it." Nerys knelt beside him quickly. "What happened? Who did this?" Evaris coughed, flecks of crimson staining his lips. "Someone inside, someone close to the king, tried to silence me." Nerys' stomach dropped. "Because you know the truth of the prophecy?" Evaris nodded faintly. "And because I know what lies ahead." Nerys grabbed a cloth from a nearby table, pressing it gently to the wound near his ribs. "Don't talk," she whispered. "Save your strength." But Evaris shook his head. "There is no strength left to save." Nerys swallowed hard, tears pricking her eyes. "Tell me then," she whispered. "Tell me what I am." Evaris's trembling hand reached for hers. She clasped it gently. "You are not the destruction," he murmured. "You are the fire that reveals it." Nerys blinked. "I don't understand." "Your power," Evaris whispered, "is not meant to kill kings. It is meant to expose them." A chill crept up Nerys' spine. Expose. His eyes sharpened for a moment, piercing despite their cloudiness. "There is rot in the palace. Deceit in the council. Wolves wearing human masks." Nerys' pulse quickened. "The traitor?" Evaris nodded weakly. "Find him before he finds you." She swallowed. "Who is he?" Evaris's lips parted, forming a name. But before he could speak it, a blade pierced through his chest from behind. Nerys screamed, stumbling backward. Blood sprayed across the floor as Evaris collapsed. The figure behind him rose, silent, deadly. A woman stepped forward, blade dripping crimson. Lady Irith Karen, the council schemer. Her smile was cold. "Such a pity," Irith murmured, wiping the blade on her embroidered sleeve. "The old man always talked too much." Nerys scrambled across the floor, heart pounding wildly. You killed him." "He was a liability," Irith said calmly. "And you," My dear, are a complication. Neri's breath caught. You're the traitor. The strongest kingdoms fall from within, Irith said, advancing. I warned Daraith many times that trusting prophecy was a fool's game. But he wouldn't listen. He wouldn't listen about you either. Nerys pressed her back to the wall. What do you want from me? Iritha's eyes glinted. Your death, of course. Once you're gone, the kingdom will be forced to choose a new path, one not enslaved by superstitions. Nerys' mark burned.
Hard.
Harder than before. Power curled inside her, desperate to break free. But Daraitha's words echoed in her mind. Do not use it. Not when it's unstable. Irith lunged. Nerys ducked behind the bedpost, grabbing the candlestick again. She swung, catching Iritha's wrist. The blade clattered across the floor. Irith snarled and grabbed Nerys' hair, slamming her into the wall. The silver mark flared, light sparking beneath her skin. Irith recoiled. What? Nerys didn't know what she was doing. The power surged on its own, crawling up her arm like lightning. Irith lunged again, and the chamber door blasted open. Daraith stormed inside, blood at his temple, eyes full of fury. Get away from her, he roared. Irith spun toward him, but Daraith didn't hesitate. He struck. Hard. Irith slammed into the stone pillar, collapsing. Daraith's chest heaved as he turned to Nerys, eyes widening at the glow on her wrist. Nerys, what happened? Are you hurt? She shook her head, breath trembling. Evaris, he tried to warn me. Irith, her voice broke. Daraith cupped her face gently, grounding her. You're safe. I've got you. Nerys' knees buckled. Daraith caught her, pulling her into his chest. She clung to him, shaking uncontrollably. His voice dropped to a whisper. I felt your fear through the bond. I came as fast as I could. Nerys looked up at him, eyes shining with something raw, terrified, and unspoken. Daraith, what is happening to me? Daraith brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Everything the prophecy warned of, he murmured. But you're not facing it alone. The bond pulsed between them, alive, undeniable. And as Daraith held her close, Nerys realized something terrifying. The prophecy wasn't just waking. So was her heart. The chamber floor was still stained with Evaris's blood when Daraith lifted Nerys into his arms. She wasn't injured, just shaking so hard her knees threatened to give. He carried her only a few steps before she found her voice again. Put me down, she whispered, trembling. Daraith hesitated. He didn't release her out of authority, but concern. Real concern. Gently, he set her on the edge of the bed. The furs sank beneath her weight as Daraith knelt in front of her like a soldier taking a vow. Look at me. Nerys tried. Her vision blurred at the edges, the memory of Iritha's blade, Evaris's dying breath, Selka's illusion, everything swallowing her in a storm of fear and disbelief. He said the traitor was close, she whispered. Someone near the king. Someone who could end me. Daraith's jaw tightened. Irith was one of many who wanted power. She wasn't the only threat, but she was the one closest to striking you. Nerys wiped at a tear that escaped despite her efforts. She said you trusted prophecy too easily. Daraith's eyes softened. I don't trust prophecy. He reached up, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. I trust you. Her breath caught. The bond pulsed in her chest, warm, insistent. The warmth frightened her. It shouldn't have been possible for an Omega and a king born from ancient blood. Bonds didn't work that way. Daraith, she swallowed. How can you trust something you don't understand? Because I know what I felt the moment I touched you, he murmured, voice low. Before any prophecy. Before any danger. Her cheeks flushed. She forced her gaze downward. That could have been anything. It wasn't, he said softly. I've lived among wolves my entire life. I know the difference between instinct and destiny. Nerys' heart thudded painfully. Destiny killed your father. Daraith's expression flickered. Pain, old and deep, shadowed his eyes. Yes, he said quietly. And fate has haunted my throne ever since. But you, he paused, breath trembling for the first time. You don't feel like a warning. Nari's throat tightened. Then what do I feel like? Deraith met her gaze, equal parts fierce and wounded. A beginning. She didn't breathe, not for several seconds. The words sank into her like sunlight into cold ground. She wasn't sure she believed him.
But she wanted to.
Desperately. Outside, another explosion shuddered through the palace. The walls trembled. Dust fell from the ceiling. The war hadn't stopped, it was spreading. Deraith stood, fists clenching. I need to secure the council chambers, he said. Irith wasn't working alone. Nariz rose too quickly, her legs shaking. Deraith steadied her with a hand at her waist. You're not going anywhere near the fighting, he said firmly. You're staying here. No, Nariz whispered, surprising even herself. You can't leave me here alone. Deraith blinked. Nariz, I can feel what happens to you, she said, voice trembling. When you were hurt earlier, I felt it. His shoulders stiffened. That's the bond strengthening. She nodded, tears threatening again. Then don't leave me. His breath caught. For a moment, the king disappeared, leaving only the man beneath. If I stay, Deraith whispered, stepping closer, I'll forget the palace is burning. Nariz's chest tightened. The fire cracked behind them, throwing golden light across his face. Then forget, she whispered. Deraith's jaw tightened. His fingers brushed her cheek, slow, hesitant, trembling with restraint. I can't, he murmured. Not when your life hangs on every choice I make tonight. Before Nariz could speak, the door flew open. Finner burst inside, panting hard, armor dented, blood streaking his sleeve. Your Majesty, there's been a breach in the lower vault. The council is demanding your presence. They think the prophecy girl is controlling the attacks. Deraith snapped his head toward him. They blame her. They always have, Finner said grimly. Nariz stepped forward. They think I'm the danger. Finner's gaze softened with pity. You're a Halwyn, Nariz. People fear what they don't understand. Deraith moved in front of her protectively, voice sharp. Finner, listen to me. Nariz stays here, with 2 guards at the door. No one enters unless I command it. Understood, Finner said, but his eyes flickered, hesitant, troubled. Deraith caught it instantly.
What?
The guards, Finner swallowed. They're refusing. They fear she'll destroy the palace if the power awakens again. Nariz's stomach twisted. Deraith's fury ignited. Visible, dangerous. I am their king, he growled. And they will obey me. Finner nodded. I'll make them listen. Deraith turned back to Nariz, softening immediately. I have to go, he said. Just long enough to shut down the council's panic. And then, she whispered. Deraith brushed his thumb along her chin. And then I come back to you. Nariz shivered, not from fear, but from how deeply she believed him. For a moment, neither of them moved. The torches flickered. The palace shook again. A howl rose from far below, a rogue's howl. Deraith flinched. They're pushing toward the throne room, Finner warned. Deraith pressed his forehead gently to Nariz. It was not a kiss. It was not intimate in the ways of lovers. It was a promise carved into breath. Stay alive, Deraith whispered. I need you alive. Her fingers curled around his wrist. Deraith, but he didn't let her finish. He turned away, reluctantly, and strode out of the chamber, Finner at his side. The door slammed. The lock clicked into place. Nariz stood alone. Truly alone. For only 10 seconds. A cold wind slithered through the room. The torches dimmed. Nariz's mark began to glow. Bright, brighter, answering something in the darkness behind her. She turned slowly. And froze. A figure stood emerging from the shadows of the window. Someone she did not expect to ever see again. Someone who should not have been able to breach the king's wards. Myrene, her real sister.
Alive.
Terrified. Bleeding. Nariz, Myrene sobbed, collapsing inward. Run. And before Nariz could reach her, a second shadow followed Myrene through the window. One with glowing red eyes. Rovan Duskstride had found the king's chambers. Miriam stumbled into the chamber, blood streaking her temple, breath shaking like a hunted deer. Nerys ran to her without thinking, catching her before she collapsed. Miriam, gods, Miriam, what happened? Miriam clutched Nerys' arm with trembling fingers. He found me. They took the village. They're coming for her. Her voice strangled into a choking sob. Nerys held her tighter, heart shattering, breath faltering. This was real. Not an illusion. Not a trick. Her sister was here. Hurt. Bleeding.
Alive.
You're safe now, Nerys whispered, voice quivering. You're with me. You're safe. A cold breath washed over Nerys' neck. She froze. Miriam's eyes widened with terror. Slowly, terrifyingly slowly, Nerys turned her head. Roven Duskstride emerged from the window shadows like a nightmare peeling itself out of the dark. His smile was slow, cruel, gleaming with triumph. Hello, Halwyn. Nerys' body locked. The silver mark on her wrist burned. Miriam screamed, shoving Nerys backward. Roven moved faster. He crossed the room in 2 strides, snatching Miriam by the throat and lifting her from the floor. Nerys' scream tore her own throat raw. No! Miriam clawed at Roven's arm, feet kicking helplessly in the air. Roven's red eyes flicked toward Nerys. The prophecy awakens more fiercely when the heart breaks, he purred. How poetic. Nerys lunged forward, but he flung Miriam aside like a rag doll. She hit the stone wall with a sickening thud and crumpled. Nerys' knees buckled. Miriam, no movement. No sound. Roven grabbed Nerys' chin, forcing her to look at him. She'll live. For now. Nerys' vision blurred with rage and terror. Why are you doing this? Her voice cracked. Roven leaned in, breath cold against her cheek. Because the Halwyn power was meant for wolves. For my pack. Not for kings. He shoved her backward. Nerys crashed into the bedpost. Pain exploded through her ribs. Roven stalked closer, boots scraping the floor, the chamber shrinking with every step. Tonight, he growled, I end Varen's bloodline. And I take what is mine. The mark on Nerys' wrist glowed violently, blinding, hot, alive. Power pulsed through her, begging to break free. But she forced herself still. Doraitha's voice echoed through her mind. Don't use it when you're afraid. She was terrified. Roven lunged. Nerys jumped aside, scrambling across the room. She wasn't fast enough. His hand wrapped around her ankle, dragging her across the floor. She screamed, kicking wildly. Roven slammed her against the ground, pinning her with one knee on her chest. Stop fighting, he snarled. You were meant to serve. The chamber door blasted open. Doraith stormed in like a force of nature, bloodied, panting, eyes blazing with feral rage. Get away from her. He didn't wait for response. He tackled Roven with full alpha force, slamming him through a pillar. Stone cracked. Dust exploded. Miriam moaned weakly from the corner. Nerys crawled toward her. Stay with me, Miriam. Please. Doraith and Roven crashed into the far wall, claws and steel colliding in a whirlwind of violence. Roven slashed Doraitha's shoulder open. Doraith countered with a strike to Roven's ribs that would have shattered a human spine. Blood sprayed the walls. Roven roared. You should have killed her when you had the chance. Doraith slammed him down. I will never hurt her. Nerys' heart broke and strengthened all at once. Roven twisted beneath Doraith, bringing a hidden dagger upward. Nerys screamed, but she was too far, too slow. The blade plunged into Doraitha's side. Doraith choked on a breath, staggered, blood spilling across the stones. Doraith. Nerys cried. The bond ripped through her, violent pain echoing his wound. Doraith stumbled backward. Roven stood, breathing hard, eyes gleaming. Look at you, Roven spat. A king weakened by an omega. Doraitha's knees buckled. Nerys ran to him. Roven struck again, claws aiming for Doraitha's throat. Nerys didn't think. She didn't breathe. The silver mark on her wrist detonated. A blast of blinding power erupted from her arm, pure, raw light. It hit Rovan dead in the chest. He flew across the chamber, smashing into the opposite wall. And this time, he did not get up. The power dimmed. Nerys collapsed beside Daraith, hands trembling as she pressed them against his wound. Blood seeped through her fingers. Warm. Too warm. "Stay with me," she begged. "Please, Daraith, stay with me." Daraith lifted a shaking hand, brushing her cheek with a tenderness that broke her in half. "I told you. I'd come back," he whispered. "Even dying couldn't stop me." Nerys sobbed. "Don't say dying, don't." "Nerys," he winced, eyes darkening. "The bond." She pressed her forehead to his.
Yes.
"I feel it." "Good," he murmured. "Then you know, I'm not leaving." His voice weakened, pain tightening his throat. "You have to finish this. Rovan isn't dead. He'll rise again. You must end him." Nerys looked toward Rovan's crumpled form, shadows shifting around him ominously. She wiped her tears, fierce resolve settling in her bones. "Then I'll end him for you." Daraith's eyes softened. "Not just for me," he breathed. "For the kingdom." He coughed violently. Nerys cradled his face, voice shaking. "Don't close your eyes. Daraith, look at me." He obeyed.
Barely.
"You're not dying," she whispered. "I won't let you die." His lips curved, weak, but real. "I knew the prophecy was wrong," he whispered. "You weren't born to destroy kings." He brushed her cheek again. "You were born to save me." And as the chamber filled with the sound of Rovan rising again, Nerys stood, silver light crawling across her skin, ready to face destiny, ready to save Daraith Varen or die trying. Rovan rose from the shattered stone like a creature ripped from nightmare, blood dripping down his jaw, eyes burning with feral red fire. His spine cracked as he straightened, each vertebra snapping back into place with inhuman resolve. Nerys stood between him and Daraith, her chest heaving, her wrist glowing silver bright enough to illuminate the entire chamber. The power crawling beneath her skin hummed like a living storm, still wild, still unpredictable, but no longer suffocating, no longer refusing her. It waited. It listened. It was hers, if she chose it. Rovan tilted his head, cracking his neck. "You should be dead," he growled. Nerys didn't look away. "You should be gone." "Prophecy girl," Rovan spat, stepping forward. "You think a spark of awakening makes you strong? You think you can kill me?" Nerys stepped in front of Daraith fully, shielding him with her body. "I don't think," she whispered. "I choose." The silver light rippled brighter across her arm. Rovan hesitated. Just for a moment. And that was all Nerys needed. She moved, not backward, but forward. For the first time, her voice rose, trembling but fierce. "You will not touch my sister. You will not touch my king. You will not decide my fate." Rovan snarled and lunged. Nerys didn't retreat. She thrust her glowing wrist toward him, and the world ignited. Silver light exploded outward, not as a wild surge this time, but as a blazing arc of controlled force. Her force. Rovan collided with the blasphemous. The impact sounded like thunder cracking inside the chamber. He hit the opposite wall so hard the stones spiderwebbed around his body. He slumped, but did not fall. His red eyes lifted, full of fury. "You still can't kill me," he rasped. Nerys' heart pounded like a drum. Maybe not with fear. She lifted her wrist. Light rose again, swirling, responding. She took a step forward, and another, each one steadier than the last. "You fed on fear," she whispered. "You fed on prophecy. On lies. On wolves who didn't know their own strength." She raised her voice. "But you cannot feed on me." Rovan lunged again. Nerys lifted her hand, and the light transformed. Not a blast. Not a surge. A shield. A shimmering barrier of silver rose between them. Rovan slammed into it, howling as the light burned his skin. He staggered back, clutching his arm, eyes wide. "Impossible," he hissed. "You're not trained." "No," Nerys whispered. "But I have something stronger than training." She glanced at Daraith, bleeding, fading, watching her with absolute trust. I have something worth protecting. Rovan screamed and charged again. Nerys braced. This time, she didn't wait for the light. She commanded it. Silver erupted from her palm in a wave that tore across the chamber like a living tide. Rovan's roar shattered into a choking scream as the light wrapped around him, engulfing him, crushing him, erasing him. The rogue alpha dissolved into ash and shadow, ripped apart by the power meant to destroy kingdoms. But Nerys hadn't destroyed a kingdom. She had destroyed the threat to it. The chamber fell silent. The light dimmed. Nerys collapsed to her knees, gasping. Nerys! Dorathe's voice was faint, pain-laced. She scrambled to him, sliding across the stone. His skin was pale, sweat beading his forehead, blood spilling too fast from the wound. Stay with me, she whispered. Please stay. Dorathe lifted a trembling hand, brushing her cheek. I told you, he breathed. I'm not going anywhere. Nerys pressed her hands to his wound. Let me heal you, she begged. Dorathe's eyes widened weakly. You don't know how. I didn't know how to fight either, she sobbed. But I learned. His chest rose in a shaky breath. Nerys, let me try, she whispered.
Please.
She placed her glowing wrist over his wound. The power hesitated, coiling inside her like a beast awaiting permission. Nerys gave it one. With a soft cry, she let it flow. Silver light spread from her palm, sinking into Dorathe's skin, weaving through torn flesh, binding what was broken. Dorathe's back arched as the magic surged through him. He gasped in shock, then pain, then relief. Nerys held on, pouring everything she had into him until her vision blurred. When the glow faded, the wound was gone. Only a faint scar remained. Dorathe stared at her in stunned silence. You, his voice broke. You healed me. Nerys swallowed hard. I didn't think. I just couldn't lose you. Slowly, painfully, Dorathe sat up, reaching for her, cupping her face with both hands. You saved me, he whispered. Again. Nerys blinked through tears. You saved me first. He leaned his forehead to hers, soft, trembling, reverent. Nerys Halwyn, he said quietly. Whatever the prophecy was meant to be, you rewrote it tonight. She exhaled a shaky breath. I was so afraid. I know. And you still trust me? Dorathe's voice softened into something she had never heard from him before, something raw and utterly unguarded. I don't trust the prophecy, he murmured. I trust you. Nerys closed her eyes, tears slipping down her cheeks. And the bond. Dorathe's thumb brushed her tear away. The bond chose, he whispered, long before either of us understood it. Behind them, Myrene stirred with a soft groan. Nerys rushed to her sister's side. Myrene blinked weakly. Rhys, you're glowing. Nerys laughed through tears. Long story. Dorathe stood, steady, strong again, and walked to them. You are safe, he told Myrene. Both of you are safe. Myrene glanced between them, saw the way Dorathe looked at Nerys, and smiled faintly. I knew, she whispered, even before you did. Nerys helped her sit up. Dorathe extended a hand. Come, he said softly. The kingdom waits. For what? Nerys whispered. For their queen to rise, Dorathe answered. Nerys froze. Queen. Dorathe stepped closer, taking her hand. You faced the prophecy, he murmured. You saved my throne, my life. He brushed his lips against her knuckles, gentle, reverent. And my heart. Nerys trembled. Dorathe, walk with me, he whispered. Not as a prophecy, not as a burden, as my equal. She swallowed, chest aching with something too big for words. Yes, she whispered. I will. Dorathe smiled, small, real. The bond pulsed between them, warm, certain, eternal. And as they stepped into the smoke-filled corridor, Nerys realized something for the first time. She hadn't been born to destroy kings. She had been born to love one, and to lead beside him, as queen. And that brings us to the end of this story. Now I have a question for you. Yes, you watching right now. Did this ending break your heart, heal it, or make you want more? Tell me in the comments. Should I continue this world with a sequel, or start an entirely new werewolf romance with all new characters?
Don't be shy.
Your comment decides what story I write next. If you want chapter 1 of a brand new series, type new story. If you want to stay with Daraith and Nerys, type sequel. And before you go, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next chapter. I'll be waiting in the comments to see what you choose.